Hey there, thanks for joining us at the Rabbit Hole of Research, where you'll learn a few facts that you can impress your friends with at a party. Well, hey there, welcome back to the Rabbit Hole of Research. This here is episode 17, down here in the basement studio. I am Joe.
You got Nick.
We got Nick, and we do this differently every time, but we do have a guest here with us. And Michael, go ahead and give us a little introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Michael Lynn. You probably haven't heard of me. I'm no one particularly famous. I have a very small YouTube channel called Forge that's about open source desktop metal printing. And my background is physics. I like weird science fiction, mind uploading, robotics, exotic cybernetics, and other things like that. So I guess I'm here to just be the peanut gallery or
keep us more in check. You know, we've been promising everyone that we would get a physicist on, and so here we are. Finally,
I feel the need to qualify this. My actual doctoral degree is in material science. It's technically not physics.
You know that.
Yeah.
Physicists will call you out.
Well, it's small steps. We one step at a time. So today we're going to be talking about telepathy and telekinesis in fiction and fantasy, pop culture, and all the like in the real world.
And spoiler alert, reality.
In reality, that's right.
Yeah.
So as
You
always,
mean like calling somebody on your cell phone?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we did some tests here at the Rabbit Hole of Research just today.
And Nick, you can go ahead and
Yeah, Joe had texted me earlier today going, hey, I've been trying to send you messages telekinetically about tonight, but it seems like it didn't work. But I think it actually did, because like less than 5 minutes before that, I was thinking, oh yeah, I should text Joe, make sure everything's good tonight. Just saying, you know.
that's it. So yeah, so
The short amount of time between those two.
So our telepathy.
Before we get started, Joe, what are you drinking?
Oh, hold on. Don't
Come
you
on,
know?
you gotta.
Let me send it out to the listeners here. You got it? You know what I'm drinking? You
There's a
guess?
little bit of a delay.
I'm drinking a Two Hearted IPA by Bell's Brewery. A nice classic IPA. Nick?
I'm drinking Emu by Sun King. It's a cold IPA.
Cold IPA.
Also drinking Liquid Death
That's right.
today.
I only have two drinks. Nick only has two drinks a day. There's a rift in the universe. He may be from a different
I was running
multiverse,
late.
so-
Let's be honest,
Yeah,
guys.
I do have water also, but I usually always have water, but
I'm drinking a blender bottle full of Soylent mixed with cheap rum.
did you say you're drinking Soylent, as in Soylent Green?
Soylent.
The
Wow. It's not made of people, but
It's
yeah, the
people.
same brand.
it's people. All right, everything
I
here
wish.
on the Rabbit Hole Research, we're now drinking people. So that's
They're so pasty. I mean,
I love my people in the
Yum.
morning.
yeah, like
let my
this
people
quick.
go. Let my people
Well,
go.
the person, it must be Captain Morgan.
Yeah.
Or maybe Admiral Nelson. He's probably the guy that
Yeah, I
went
don't-
up in the soil, and he's a little older.
He's not people.
He's not people. So back to the show. The people thing. Yeah, I don't know. Let's not go down that hole.
For another episode,
That's
Joe.
a different episode. But telepathy, it was a term originally coined in 1882 by Frederick W.H. Myers of the Society of Psychiatrical Research. And he had the term, that's to set our bearings, telepathy for our purposes, the ability to communicate information from one mind to another without using any known sensory channel or physical interaction. And so it refers to transmission of thoughts, feelings, ideas directly between minds without speech, writing, or any other thing like that. So that's kind of there. And then we have telekinesis, and that's the concept of using your mind to move or influence objects. And I want to say that there is no scientific evidence that either of these exists. So there's no peer-reviewed study that definitively says
But there was government money put into this shit.
There was.
The
And so
government
I'm sure-
attempted to get this to work. Let's just jump off the rails real quick.
But yeah, no, that's unless you guys found something I didn't find, but really there was no proof that either one of these existed. In fiction, there's a lot of examples, so we can go now, but in real life, I'm sorry, people out there, unless you're a telepath and you're probably already you're communicating with me now.
That's how they're telling me this right now.
That's it. You already have it. So,
Well, to be fair to Nick, like the U.S. government invests surprising amounts of money in some really unusual
Bonkers.
things. I mean,
Bonkers things.
bonkers. I mean, MK Ultra is a great one.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
another
no.
thing I went down when I was looking this up. Like,
A long time ago, 16 guys, very different philosophy on life.
what? Someone went 127 days, I believe, on just like LSD.
well, there you go.
And it was like, that was a government funded event.
Like I said, not the most unusual thing.
No, telepathy, it sounds good if you get it to work. If you can transmit ideas to someone else without any means of technology, then you have a quite the advantage on the battlefield, right? If your general and the soldiers can communicate without walkie-talkie or Morse code or any other code you want to develop that can be cracked, because ultimately a human devised code can probably be broken. And so you have some advantage there. Like you can just tell people, go left, go right, go.
I mean, the Jedi used this already.
Jedi. And that was a path I went down, the Force. The Force is, it's telekinesis, telepathy, and just their telepathy, the tele is distance, and the pathy is feelings or perception. And telekinesis, you would have the tele, far off or distant, and then kinesis, motion. Just to set that, the Greek roots of these words and where they come from, and there is some like historical notion. And I want to say like the earliest examples, it wasn't termed this, but that would be in the Indian Sanskrit epic, the Mahabharata. They have a character there who can, through telekinesis, manipulate dice. And this dates back to about 400 BC. And the most famous, probably, historical account would be Jesus. In fictional, the earliest one I found was the story To Whom This May Come by Edward Bellamy. And it was in 1889. And it was a guy was shipwrecked on an island. And the people who were there, they only communicated by telepathy. They lost the ability to vocalize speech. And so that was like the earliest story that I found. Did you find one earlier? Because last show,
Wait, what year did you say?
I said 1889.
No, I didn't.
Okay. All right. Yes, I would.
Last episode, I was like, hold up. Let me try it on you for this one.
I know. Usually I get the earliest example there of, so. But what
So,
did you?
How far are you willing to take? How far are you guys willing to take the concept of telepathy?
All the way.
Like,
Well,
is
yeah.
there-
As
How far
as
you wanna
like.
go?
I mean, we're already at hand
Like-
wavium 100% or 99%. So just, or no, you know what?
Whoa.
I'm gonna put a pin in it because I think there might be a
So-
path. It was like the eye candy episode. There was a path to laser eyes.
There is a path to
Right.
this.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go, Michael.
Does telepathy have to be two-way, Joe, or does it have to be, or can it just be one way?
I think
Like-
it can go
like-
I
one
think it
way.
go one way. Yeah, I just
Because if you're just planting it
that's
in.
right. That's right. Yeah. So I just watched the movie Doctor Sleep, and so that was one way. So you do have one way. Darth Vader. It's
I mean, that's
one way to
essentially
force
what-
movement. Yeah. So yeah. Yes.
These are
one
not
way.
the
Where do you-
droids
where
you're
you
looking
going?
for.
Let's let Michael go ahead. Keep going. Let's go.
But it poses a deeper question. Like, if someone else is reading your thoughts, are they telepathic, or are you?
I mean, if you know
Yeah,
that they're
right.
reading your thoughts and you plant in something that's false,
Yeah.
would that be
I think I see where you're
you
coming
knowing
from,
it, then?
and I guess the person, if you're doing it with intent. So if you're planting the idea, if you're reading the idea, then it's your intent to read it. If you're perceiving the idea, then it's the other person's intent to put the idea into your head. So I would say that's the one. That's how we could scientifically peer review this, right? Is that fair? Is that fair? I mean, I'm
I
open.
think so.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah,
You know, like what? I don't know. It's like as far as fictional instances of telepathy, there's a huge range of possibilities. There's everything from lighter one-way messaging in fantasy settings, like
right,
the elves have in Lord of the Rings, right?
right. Yep.
All the way to things like what's his name? Oh, are you familiar with Preacher from the Dark Horse comics?
Oh,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
Genesis.
great-
You know,
Yeah.
this guy has the godlike capacity to alter reality. You know,
Yeah.
it's hypercosmic. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where the constraint is. I don't know. In my world, you know, or like, I guess in our world, the
Wait,
No,
there's
what-
a full
yeah, right.
disclaimer. You did come from a different reality.
Yeah. Let's talk
Oh,
about
okay.
let's talk about this
Oh.
world and then the other world that you're, you know.
yeah. Well, so I mean, the closest thing I can think of is like fMRI, right? Someone using essentially targeted radio emissions to control the state of elements in your brain, or at least to read out those states without touching you, without penetrating your skull.
Am I before you go too far in? You said FM.
fMRI,
Can you-
functional magnetic resonance imaging.
There it is. Just for we'll put that in the show notes for everybody. But yeah, we just want you to. We try not to use a lot of acronyms because you know we have a mixed
Sorry.
audience of not all scientists. But yeah. So,
Oh no, I picked that one up. Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah, and even I was like, what'd you say there? And so yeah, so thank you.
You did specifically say it can't involve technology, right? You specifically put the
That-
constraint on it cannot be a technological apparatus.
That's right. And that's where I think you get into the brain computer interface kind of model and
Yeah.
pass through where you can get to telepathy. And I think we'll probably see that where I think in probably the next 10 years or 15 years, I'm just going to put a pin in the board. We might see that type of device.
I'm
show
gonna
up.
pose this one up though. Hold up. Twins. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize to all twin listeners right
This
now.
is like the second, third episode you've had to apologize to twins. I feel like we have no twin listeners.
I don't know. I probably pushed
Hey,
them
you
all
never
away.
know.
But damn, are they like freaky shit with that? I saw a video of two twins that are like holding up the same color at the same time, and I'm like, how are they doing that? There's a barrier between them, and they're like, yeah, this is right. I think that they have some kind of telepathy there between their minds. They're like,
You
we
have
know
it.
what's going on.
It has been shown that like identical twins have extraordinarily similar structures in their brain.
Right.
So of the very few like identical twins whose full brains, whose the pair has died and whose brains we have on record and have examined closely, like there's a p greater than 0.9 like correlation between the protein structures in their brains.
Yeah.
That
Which
shit's
is kind of
wild.
incredible.
So, yeah, I mean, there was.
I mean, so maybe it's just happenstance, right? Maybe they're
Right,
just similar
right,
enough that
right.
they respond the same way.
That's right. There was a couple genetic sequencing studies. So they were taking folks that had individuals who claimed psychic abilities like telepathy, and they were looking for genetic variants there. But they also looked at twin telepathy, as you guys are talking about. But they really found like mixed and inconclusive kind of evidence for a genetic component to alleged telepathic abilities between twins.
I
Is that
don't know.
right?
I feel like they're like
So if
walkie talkies to each other.
there's no genetic basis, I guess,
Maybe
or so far
yeah,
there's been none found. So
biological entanglement,
right.
maybe. I don't know.
that's right. Yeah, right. So now we're getting the quantum. That's why we got the physicists. So I don't get in trouble. We've done two quantum-esque episodes, and I'm sure I've stepped in it. But yeah, no, that was the other way biologically that you would have to have. I'm getting excited. That's why we need the video so people can see how exciting this is. How
How-
passionate
Joe's literally hand waving.
I am. I have hand wavium. Like yes,
and,
jazz hand wavium. This is the next level of hand wavium. But there's really that genetic basis and the one, and how would you get there without technology? And that was one that I've come across in an entanglement that you could actually get some entanglement that then would allow you, right? Because it's spooky action at a distance, so you don't actually even have to be close. You can be very far away once you entangle the two. Once you're in superposition
yeah.
entanglement.
yeah, I don't know about quantum entanglement built their networks have incredibly similar dynamics because they're wired similarly. Like if you basic stimuli, even though they have totally different political opinions, something that involves like more detailed thought and the prefrontal cortex, maybe their deeper brain regions are like predisposed to raising the blue card whenever you bring up like a certain noise or something. I don't know if anybody's studied this in mice. I think they've done it mostly in humans and in other like the cocks maybe.
And what's done this in mice?
I don't think anybody's done it in mice or anything that like lives fast enough that you could do large numbers of experiments. That's the problem with all these twin studies.
I mean, in the animal realm, I found that scientists have postulated elephants that they have low frequency rumbling that will allow like transmissions. Yep, whales and dolphins. John Lilly was the researcher whose name came up.
Uses a sense.
What's that?
That uses a sense. It's not strictly telepathic. It's just really good hearing.
I guess that. Yeah, I guess you're right.
I mean,
yes. If the frequency, all right, depends on the frequency, right? Because it might be, you might not be able to pick it up with your auditory sense, right?
Well, you wouldn't be able to hear it, but they can hear it just fine, right?
Your mind's ear.
Your mind's ear.
Your
ear, maybe. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So scrap these animals. I mean, how about brainwaves? Right? We do.
They emit in radio. They're they're pretty long wave, but they're super low intensity.
And there's several different, 5 different types of brain waves that come out at different frequencies.
There's a lot more than that.
Are there more than that? I mean, there was like alpha, beta, delta, gamma, right? I mean, wasn't those
there's like compound waves.
Okay.
I think they're mostly referring to averages, aggregates of brain activity and like predictable patterns across the neocortex. But those patterns are detectable outside the skull, even at conceivably at large distances if you have a sensitive enough receiver.
Right.
People have tried that. I think there's a field called biophotonics that's been around for close to a century now.
The thing I found too was the biowave-based authentication. Like you would make a brain password, and then you can't hack the brain kind of thing, right? Or at least right now we can.
I believe we talked about that in a recent episode.
They make these things. I think they call them pharmaceuticals, Joe.
Pharmaceuticals mixed with soylent. Is that? So you're absolutely right. The low frequency that you had that, and you wouldn't be able to do it. But yeah, I said a Dr. Sleep. The other movie I watched this week was A Boy and His Dog, or at least I watched part of it.
What do you mean you watched part of it?
Well, I watched like half of it, and then I got into something else. I've seen it before.
Okay.
And so I was on the background, and I knew we were coming up to this episode, and I was like, I haven't watched A Boy and His Dog, very young Don Johnson, but the dog was telepathic, and they were going through like this kind of post-apocalyptic wasteland.
I have a question here. How is the dog telepathic? Wouldn't it just be like an imaginary friend at that point? Like, hi, you're talking to me.
Well, no, the dog,
because I'm all alone.
It was after World War IV, which lasted 5 minutes. It's set in 2024.
Oh,
so
shit.
So I found that back. It was like, 2024. I'm like, that's like now. So essentially the dog, he's got the boy, Don Johnson, they're wandering this wasteland, and they need food and sex. That's what they're looking for, like women and food.
Things, yeah.
And so they're going, as the dog is a telepath, he can sense other folks and what they're doing, how many there are, and then communicate that, there's 5 people over there. Wait, they're gone. There's 1 female. So it's not just imaginary, like the boy is there. I mean, it's just Michael's question earlier about intent. So who's communicating with you, and the dog is always in the boy's head.
But can't the dog already do that? Like IRL, like a dog can tell you that there's this many people over here.
I don't know what dog you've had. I never had a dog in my head with
Isn't
the
that
human
what they're trained
voice.
for?
Like,
Extraordinary dog.
like
Isn't that what they're trained for? Like in the military
in
and
your
shit
head,
like that?
they're like, "Hey, Nick, there's a food over there." You know what I mean? I never had a dog like that. Now they might run over there or point at something, but they don't communicate in my head like actively.
Like, wouldn't that be
So-
like its nose telling you
closest
what's
thing-
there? Then, like, that's using other
Well, no,
senses.
but I mean it's kind of
Yeah,
much more
I mean,
detailed
like-
than that. If you
Yeah.
watch the movie, yeah, it's in the head.
Thing
It's
I've ever
yeah.
gotten to that is like my dog complaining about
Right.
getting a smaller number of food morsels, like a smaller number of like they showed some capacity to count or have understanding of quantity, and then they would communicate that I was not fulfilling the quantity that I'd previously been giving them, like that, like treat inflation kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's telepathy or just dogs having
Right,
a sense of
that could be.
economics.
You know what? That's looked at when I was doing my research. Japanese concept of ichen denshin. Someone's probably going to correct me on that. I'll put it in the show notes, but it's this unspoken mutual understanding, a feeling, and it's referred
so
to as
inference.
telepathy. Right, exactly, an inference, and
Yeah.
that's what I think you're saying. Where that's throughout culture, there are terms like that kind of scattered about, where it is this kind of feeling. I think something's going to happen, or you're reading off of someone else. Like maybe it's time to leave the party. You know.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
or
me as
crowds,
soon as I
reading
walk into a
crowd.
party.
Right.
I gotta leave. How can I get out of here?
It's time to go. See you later.
Any large crowd. Yeah, I know how you feel, man.
But
There's
back to the
definitely a
dog
vibe
thing, real
there.
quick.
Back to the
Last thing, like, my dog will let me know when Michelle's coming in. Like, she knows when she's down
there's
the
a
street.
voice in your head, like it's speaking
This dog
in.
speaks to you.
Oh,
some
she
other-
doesn't speak to
right.
you guys?
That's right. So this in the movie,
It's,
there was actual
There-
speech. Like
but,
there was.
but my point is, like, she isn't like finding out that she's there because she's telepathic. Like, she's finding out because she knows
How do
senses.
you know she's not telepathic?
Because
Maybe
she would have
is finding
told
out.
me.
And maybe she doesn't want
She
to talk
gets
to you.
really pissed at me. All right, I know this.
In
Oh,
this
you're
movie,
gonna not give me
go
that
out- did you-
scraps?
have you seen A Boy and His Dog?
No,
All right, go. All right, so go watch it. Yeah, yeah.
I'm just
Like
already
that.
trashing on it.
I know.
I'm
I don't
just
know
like-
why. I know. It's a good. It's a decent movie.
I think,
So
I think
it's
the only way-
1974.
the only thing I can think of that wouldn't necessarily involve direct like technology is if somebody, let's say like some really dedicated Buddhist monk out there, like master of the mind, got together with his buddies and they all sat down and learned somehow to, like, in a totally noiseless environment, like completely shielded from outside EMI, learn to listen for one another's tiny radio emissions from their neurons. Like, that's conceivable. Like, a single neuron has sufficient sensitivity as an antenna, conceivably, to have its polarization, to basically undergo a depolarization event if it got a sufficiently concentrated signal from outside the skull at radio frequencies, say like 1 hertz. Like,
Mhm.
neurons are sensitive to 1 hertz radio waves with sufficient intensity. And the actual intensity at which they can respond is much lower than you think. It's measured at like maybe 2 microwatts per square centimeter of intensity, which, to put this in perspective, is like 1/10 billionth of what your phone puts out.
Right.
So people's concerns about EMI affecting the brain are not completely unfounded. It's just that no one's seen any real hard evidence in a double-blind trial that EMI from electronic devices in our environment actively affects the way our brains operate. But the possibility exists because neurons are known to respond to quite low intensities of RF noise. And it stands to reason that a person sufficiently well trained, say somehow they learned to make their neurons fire together all in one part of their cortex at one time to put out a structured signal with a high intensity, could communicate with another person this way. It's just that the human brain, as far as we're aware, has never been trained to do this and it isn't wired for it yet. But it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. It's just nobody's seen it. You know, and there's a lot of things science hasn't seen, but the only reason I bring it up is it's the only thing I can think of that's like maybe a real possibility.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the physics works
Right,
out.
right.
If you think about it, no calls to quantum entanglement, nothing like
Yeah.
that. Entirely classical electrodynamics.
I mean, I guess that gets to like using brainwaves and that kind of thing and that frequency. And just for the folks out there following along, EMI, electromagnetic interference.
Sorry.
Right. No, you're fine. You're
Yeah.
fine. We'll put it in the show notes. People know we'll do it. But yeah, so that's just there. Yeah, no. So then would you So if we follow your line, then it would probably be conceivable that you would need some sort of amplifier. So an amplifying organ,
maybe. I
you
guess
know,
put
right?
an antenna on
That's
your
right.
head.
Or
You could
I'm
wear,
talking
like,
about
a dish.
genetically, or through evolution, if your means of communication atrophied, like in fiction, I'm tethering back to fiction here a little bit, trying to get rid of some of the hand wavium. But if you had this kind of thing, you would, over generations, you could actually select for people who could receive a frequency, a neuronal frequency at that level, right? And so you could have that happen.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I'm not a geneticist, but I could conceive
You're not?
of.
Oh, now we need to get a geneticist on. No.
But I could conceive of a biohack. I could conceive of a CRISPR gene mod.
Here we go.
Say,
Do not hold on. Do not try any of this at home, listeners. Please
leave it to the professionals like us. What are we doing? First YouTube video?
Our first YouTube video will be biohacking telepathy into ourselves.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Maybe it's not a good idea. You're right. Yeah, I mean, you could, like, your neurons in your spine are like meters long. They're incredibly long.
That's
They
right.
have a super long axon effect through a single cell body. So of all the cells in your body that could participate, like, these guys have the most receptive area and the most broadcast area per unit, like, activation potential. It's like a single neuron in your spine might have an axon a meter long or more, but it's just one neuron body. And so it has the same general sensitivity to activation by RF. Like, people who get exposed to microwaves in too high of a dose, like somebody who stands in front of a radar dish back in World War II, I think there was 1 or 2 instances of this. The first thing to go is usually your spinal cord. It acts like a giant antenna.
Wow.
So, like,
do they get signal?
They do get signal.
Do they get signal?
Then they walk around going, "Can you hear me now?"
Right.
Horrendously paralyzed.
Right. Yeah. So they don't make it. They don't actually reproduce after that. Like, so they don't have any.
What I'm suggesting though is that you might be able to not blast them with microwaves. You can edit them so that they can broadcast at a lower frequency with a lower intensity, and then set those cells up to receive at those frequencies. So they. Yeah.
Right.
You
may have to make a whole new organ. So, like, the third brain, right? Because we got our primary brain, we got the enteric nervous system, and then you would have the telepathy brain that would be hanging off. Organoid implant. There it is. Organoid implant. And an organoid is a artificial kind of pseudo organ that you can make in a lab to do experiments on and things like that without actually harvesting the actual organ. So you can build it out of the same cells. Will have similar structure, complexities, and biology as the actual organ. So organoids, and you can have brain organoids, heart, liver.
It is organoid.
Right. So,
and you can grow them in other animals. There's no reason you can't put them in a person. It's just maybe people get a little squeamish.
They might. Unless we're biohacking. Rabbit hole of research. Biohacking 101.
I'm in. Let's do it. Test subject number 1 right here.
I think it would be much lower risk. Just let me put that out there. I think it's a lot lower risk to just modify the cells in your spinal cord. I mean, it's risky, but it's a lot lower risk than trying to do brain surgery and, like, inserting an organoid somewhere. Yeah.
The risk level. Here it is. Speaking of risky, like in shady characters, but I'm gonna go back to fiction. Something I found fascinating, and I might do a little more digging because I was a little like, but the reign of the Superman came up on my radar as I was searching around for this. It was a 1933 short story written by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster of Superman. Yeah, the superhero. But this story, the Superman, it was actually a telepathic villain, and this kind of chemist. This chemist came, I think it was Ernest something, kind of picked out this guy from the bread line. This was set in the 30s, so during Depression, so the bread line, and had him participate in these shady experiments.
Wait, did he work for the U.S. government? Because it sounds like someone either read it from the U.S. government or...
This was the secret files here. They had an NDA, so they couldn't, a non-disclosure. Yeah.
Technically, both Joe and I are implicit government employees.
Are you guys really? I am self-employed.
Maybe
so
it's a stretch. I don't know.
Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to put you guys on some lists.
I have no no non-disclosure agreements with anyone currently, or well, yeah, okay.
You can't talk about it either way.
Right. So what happens is they go experiment on this guy. So back in the day, you can just experiment on people and animals without
The good old
any
days.
regulations or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
You
the
want some
payment,
superpowers?
right? The payment was a new suit and a real meal. That was it.
Not
Come on,
bad.
let me inject you with some stuff, and we're gonna go. And so then they go.
Sold. I'm in.
And then he got
Sold.
these telepathic superpowers. He could go read people's mind, do crazy stuff. And then he just got intoxicated with power, and he goes back and he kills the scientist because he was shady.
Well, yeah, you just pick up a
So-
random person. You
but
didn't do
the
any
problem
You don't want
was-
somebody
vetting.
else getting this power, right?
The
You wanna keep
problem
it to
was
yourself.
is that the compound wore off. He killed the scientist who knew how to make the formula.
You fool.
And the story ends with them back in the bread line.
Flowers
so-
for Algernon kind of
Yeah.
moment, huh?
That's right. Oh, there it is. That's it. Yeah,
dude.
that's right. That's right.
So
Flowers
it's
for
like
Algernon.
the
Yeah, that's a good
evil
one.
version of Professor Xavier.
That's right. Yes, yes.
It's like if Xavier was like,
Yeah.
I'm going
Right.
full evil.
But then they went, and I guess in this story, Superman was hyphenated. So that was kind of, so it wasn't Superman from Krypton that we know and love, but this was their original kind
We
of
love Superman.
story. Well,
I thought as a
Yes.
rabbit hole of research, we took a hard stance against
I
Superman.
mean, I didn't take a hard stance. No, that's Nick
I mean, he is basically space Jesus, so
Space. This second time Jesus has come up in this episode. I mean, we're gonna have to pay some royalties or something now.
Believe me, the Catholic
Man.
Church has already been trying.
I don't know.
I think they call that I.
But yeah,
The
there's. I
original
mean,
copyright.
if you had telepathy and you go down a rabbit hole of bad, it's manipulating people's minds, corporate espionage,
I watched
interrogation.
the
I mean, you
movie-
can just go
I
through
like
it.
to- I like
Kilgrave.
to
Speaking of
believe.
villains, Kilgrave from Jessica Jones storylines. So I mean, you have these folks. You're not a Kilgrave fan?
It's okay. I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion. All I know
Uh-oh.
is a few memes.
But yeah, no, I think it would be hard. I mean, or easy. I don't know. If you had telepathic abilities,
Well, I mean, then you get to hear what everyone, talks shit about you.
right?
You're like, oh man, I'm
Wasn't
either
there
going
a
to.
movie with like Mel Gibson?
I don't
Like-
know. I don't watch Mel Gibson, but
Like, wasn't there one like where he could read women's thoughts and I can't. What was that
Well,
called? You know what that was called?
10 Things I Hate About You?
No, no.
I know what you call. I remember the premise. I don't
No.
remember the name of the
I don't
film.
know.
What a Woman
Oh, I'm
Wants.
thinking.
Oh, is
I'm
that it?
thinking that
I don't know.
That Nicolas Cage movie where you can see like
Oh,
30
Nick
seconds
Cage.
into the future or something.
No,
I-
but that's not like telepathy though.
I mean,
That's more like time
hold on.
travel. That's like mental.
Oh, no,
tele-
he can't. He doesn't actually travel into the future. He can see it coming, like
Like
that's
Madam
the
Web.
abilities. Yeah, sort of like very shitty future prediction abilities.
Both of
Is that-
those
that's
were
not
terrible
telepathy?
movies.
I wouldn't consider that telepathy.
I don't think
There
that's
was
telepathy. No.
Telechronology?
Now we're making up terms. Here we go. On a rabbit hole of research, we got it. That'll be in the show notes. We're taking full credit.
Coin.
Can you spell that for us real
Yeah,
quick?
that's
We
right,
need to
yeah.
write this down.
DELECHRONOLOGY.
That was like like pyrokinesis, fire
Yeah,
starter.
yeah.
So I mean, I guess you can deviate off, but fire starter, classic Stephen King story movie with the young Drew Barrymore. You've seen,
Yeah.
Fire- okay.
Yeah,
Nick is looking at me like
I was
I'm
just
crazy.
waiting to see where this was going.
I'm just saying. No, I'm
Oh.
saying how you can
to
compound these
believe-
Greek words like to be
Yeah.
compounded.
Back on your point about the telepathy driving people mad with power. I like to believe that real people are generally less interesting than the ones in media. Like,
Oh, I don't
also
know.
in general,
I don't know.
Much less, much more boring. I'm not, truth is stranger than fiction, but not because humans themselves are interesting, but because the
I think,
environments in which
like-
they exist are strange.
So let's step away from superpower and go to a person receives a large sum of money. They tend to
They go a
become
little crazy.
they go
Yeah,
a little
go
crazy, right? So now if you give them a super ability, I don't see how they will not do the same. Like I think you would just go you
Hands
would go
down,
to some
I'd
level,
become a
right?
supervillain.
Yeah, I think
Although-
Hands down. Give me like 10 minutes.
People are
But-
crazy.
But we're not regular people. We're Rabbit Hole of Research podcast hosts. So we're above the regular people
Straight
level.
up
so,
villain.
Sure. I guess we're also living in a time where like we have multiple ultra wealthy people building their own
That's right. Yeah,
programs.
that's right. No, right. And I mean, we have one
One
ultra wealthy
step
person
up.
building a brain telepathy telepathy device, right? I mean, I think that's right.
Just one. There's like 10, man. There's a ton of them out there.
I have those NDAs, man. I can't. Sorry, you're getting me in trouble now.
In the NDA.
But I can say anything. No one has me hooked. Unless you want to pay me a lot of money.
Well, maybe for a nice suit and a meal.
All it takes, man.
I'm pretty cheap, guys.
Every
I'm not
one
gonna
nice
lie.
suit, like, you know. Let me inject this stuff into you for a nice suit and a real meal.
So did the scientist in this case actually tell him he was going to be getting powers, or he just be like, I'm going to try this on you?
You know what? I need to find the story and read it, but the way it read from the synopsis, it was this. I want to try this thing on you. I think he was trying different things, different formulations on different people.
He's not a scientist. He's a meth chef.
Listen, back in the day,
I mean, you know,
you can be the same thing, all right?
This is the 30s, right?
Maybe
I mean,
if you're generous, he's an alchemist.
This is the 30s. It was loose and fast here with the, you know.
Yeah, no one really cared. It was like, come inject me with something. I might get really high or I might get superpowers. Who knows?
That's still right. I mean, if he knew he was going to get superpowers, I don't think he would have offered him the nice suit. It'd be like, I'll get you like a Woolworth suit or something like that. Like a step down, not in a meal, like a real meal. It wasn't even, it was going to be a tasty meal, not alphabet soup on the bread line.
I mean, if you told me you were going to give me, if you told me that there was like a 50-50 shot that you would give me psychic powers or have a 50% lifetime increased risk of cancer, and then you gave me a meal and a suit, you'd have me, man.
It's a win, I think.
That's
yeah,
it.
win-win, dude. I'll take
see.
my chances.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know, we can work this out.
Yeah.
You know.
I like it. A nice suit and a meal, kind of a
You're
issue.
right there, buddy.
What's that?
You're right.
I was just kind of I put it all in perspective. I'm laying it all out. I'm laying the cards out on the table. Like, where do I stand on the, 50-50 superpower or crippledly disabled? But I have a nice suit and I got a good meal out of it. Yeah, yeah.
I think I'll die in a nice suit, if anything.
That's right.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't kill you.
Will the suit, can a
that.
suit be modified to fit my deformity afterwards? Like, kind of what's the, that's like a, one free alteration or something. But yeah. So we spent a lot of time on telepathy, but telekinesis, which I think is even more hand-wavium. Like at least we got something. Michael has saved the day with kind of neuronal frequency, and we might get there with a little biohacking of our spinal neurons. But telekinesis, I felt, was a lot more.
I think this is where Men Who Stare at Goats comes in, which is what I watched.
Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yes, which was an actual thing that the U.S. government put money into. In 1970, where is it? Hold on.
Somewhere in the 70s.
I had my notes here. 1972.
Notes.
Yes,
1972.
I had notes today, Joe. But 1972, the U.S. government put money into this program, and it was pretty much trying to get these psychic abilities to either walk through walls or, become a Jedi, essentially, and having all these psychic abilities. And
they're trying to boost their MIDI chords.
Yeah. It was, and they stared at goats and tried to stop their hearts. So I think that would come under telekinetic.
What these poor goats do to anybody?
I mean, they're just easy to look at. They're really pretty. Have you stared at the goat's eyes?
Easy on the eyes, those goats.
They are kind of, what's the word? They're
attractive.
Slow down there, Stu, man. You gotta be brave. Yeah, well, those moves are sharp. But,
oh my!
There's a word. They're entrancing. That's the word. They have these. I think many cultures throughout history have been this way with goats, right?
Yeah.
They've always had a.
Well, sheep go to heaven, goats go to hell, right? That was a cake.
What
song.
are you talking about?
This was not always the case. Like
that's
rams,
in the right.
Like,
what?
That's like from the Bible. Sheep go to heaven, goats. Goats go to hell.
So I actually am pretty sure that the iconography associating goats with Satan or Satanism in general is a fairly recent fad. I think that's something pulling from like neo-paganism and then a reaction.
All right, I definitely know it's a cake song, right?
I know, Ba Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir. 3 bears full. One
Although
for the
this does
master,
bring to
one for the
mind- This does
dame.
bring to mind a question. This brings to mind a question on telekinesis. What, how large of a movement will you count as telekinesis?
I think if they can move some dice while I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, I'd count that.
That was from the Sanskrit,
Okay,
right?
so at a minimum,
that's what he
they
did,
had
he
to be
moved
capable
dice.
of rigging gambling with their mind.
That's right.
Yes,
That's
I
right.
want, again, super villain. Straight up.
How do we make money off this racket?
So physical dice, I probably can't do, but probability adjustments.
You have telekinesis abilities. Is that what you're telling
He
me?
just said physical
I don't
dice,
have
no.
telekinesis
Oh,
abilities.
I thought you were.
I could contrive. I could contrive you to circumstances to have the ability to influence a physical probability, but probably not easily and not cheaply. And it really would be boring. Like you'd be spending many hours in a lab with me pointing like a laser at your head, and then like
We already went over
hopefully
this.
make sure-
I'm willing to do this. Just give me a nice suit and some bread.
He's not even a nice male now. He just wants the bread. He's just-
I prefer
bread's
baguette,
good,
thank
man.
you.
Oh yeah,
I know, that's,
Should you
um,
back down or what?
So yeah, so I mean, I think like telekinesis getting there. Right.
That's
So
tough,
how
man.
far do you
That's
have to
tough.
move? Right. Yeah, I think it's that one is there. Well,
A
I just
minimum
read
force
Carrie.
of one
I read
Newton.
Carrie, and yeah, I think it's hard. Those brainwaves are going to be having some trouble pushing things around. So
Yeah, it's tough. I mean,
yeah.
you
This
know,
one I
what,
couldn't
there's-
find. I had nothing. The other one I could, and there was a few things you can get there, but this was
I think some people
Yeah.
claim that they can bend spoons with their mind, but it's always been kind of a, oh wow, did she bend it with his thumb? And then
Yeah,
he
isn't
Right,
it
right,
just
right,
light pressure
right,
being applied?
right.
Yeah, he has
No.
really strong thumbs. It turns out.
Yeah, but that one is
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, man. That's way out there. Like
all right. So
again, we can go back to gene modding if you really want. It's like this,
I don't know how you get there. I mean, you would have to have some sort of force generator.
The force.
You know, there.
Yeah.
This episode comes out in May, right?
Well,
May the 4th, right?
Let's think about this. Let's think about this just
September
let's think about it in
4th.
terms of calories in, calories out, right? Like if you
There it is.
even if you could grow a brain region, like let's be generous. Let's say you're a blue whale, right?
Well,
And we're gonna try and make it possible for you to move objects with just the electromagnetic emissions of your brain.
right. That's how you're right. Right.
Like the effective flux. Let's say something reasonable that's not going to cook you outright, you know.
Right. You have to generate. You
yeah.
have to be a generator of power at some level,
Yeah.
above
Yeah,
and
man,
beyond.
like,
right. That's
yeah,
right. Right.
Like a
right.
blue whale
right.
brain runs on some like the functional equivalent of like 240 watts,
Right.
something like that.
Right. And that's
little
in
over 10
context. The
times
human
your
brain
brain.
is like 10 watts or
Yeah, 20-ish,
20, right.
like,
Yeah.
at the
So
very
a pretty
least,
cheap
right.
computer to run.
Yeah. So like 240 watts transmitter power
Right.
is not a lot. And if you could focus this in a tight beam, you'd need to put it on a spot like no bigger than a square
Right.
millimeter to exert a force of like 1 micronewton. Like probably less than that actually. It might be more
You're not
like
moving. You're not moving much with that.
nanonewtons.
No.
Tiny amount, yeah. But I mean, the caloric requirements of this ability would be. I guess it makes sense. Like Stranger Things, Elle, she gets really tired, gets
That's right.
nosebleeds
Yep.
when she
Yep.
moves
That's
things
right.
with her body.
That's right.
Obviously, she's burning like 5 or 6 kilowatts.
Right.
She's,
Yeah.
I wonder what she eats.
Most
Oh,
topics like this, we get back to caloric input and output because it's kind of like
Yeah.
you would have to eat so much to just do a little.
Don't get hungry.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
what
man.
I think that gets
Yeah.
shown in Stranger Things where she's
right. Yeah.
like
Eating those waffles.
exhausted
Devouring.
after it. She's like,
Yeah.
I need to eat now.
That's why she's eating Eggo waffles, man.
Yeah.
Those things got like, you know,
Yeah, they're rich, dude.
they are.
Like,
Yeah.
rich.
Small packets of high calorie goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're going to get our
Jeez,
Eggo
dude.
sponsorship.
Yes.
yeah. So I have a question.
Yeah.
Viruses. Would you consider them potentially telekinetic? Would you consider them as part of a system of telekinesis? Viruses, or say like mycelial connections, like the ability to, so like slime molds maybe an easier one.
They're not
Maybe-
viruses. Those are right. Okay.
They're not viruses.
No, they're not.
But I'm thinking about like things that are mycelial as well. Would be a better, maybe a better example there. A slime mold's all sort of one big continuous membrane. Like, would you consider the extension of slime mold's tendril to be telekinetic?
Well, I mean, are we talking about? I mean, even a cross cell. So one pole of the cell to the other pole, you communicate through that space in some way, right?
Yeah,
Is that what you're? That's what you're speaking of. Yet we
cytoplasmic streaming or whatever.
Right. So, but then are you passing signal through cytoplasm, protein? Like, are you communicating in some other way? So, what is that transmission? And how small of a unit are we going to go for telepathy? Right.
It's like what actin and kinesin, right?
Right. You do have actin, kinesin, microtubules, myosin. There's a lot of ways to get around a cell. Are you moving? Are you entangling parts of the cell? There's a lot of things there, and they touch on to that telepathy idea that you're passing information, right? So telepathy is passing information. So if you're passing information fast, then sure.
Whoa. But then through that logic, then we are telepathic because we move our own body.
Yeah, and
well, I mean,
I'm not high, guys. I swear.
That's kind of that saying, like, I might look like I'm not doing anything, but on a molecular level, I'm really busy. Because your cells are frantically.
Listen, that's what's getting me through my depression.
And I am a biologist, right? So I'm a biologist, but like, so yes, we are.
In physics, we know that you're like 99% empty space, man. Like mostly vacuum.
Empty space.
Yep, that sounds about right for me.
But that space is active,
man.
Man.
An object in my life. Never touched a single.
But yeah, like we move because of fast moving information and
right. No, I think yes, in yourself, between your brain and your toe, there is some, can that be considered telepathy and then potentially telekinesis, right? I don't know. Yeah, we could stretch it there, but that doesn't make a good story.
Not as far hand wavy.
It's a lot of hand waving. I said 98% hand wavium. And then now Michael has his new organoid that we're going to be injecting in the first live video of the Rabbit Hole Research.
Yes. Watch me get my powers.
Nick will be wearing the finest suit we can afford, our budget allows, in a nice baguette.
Yes.
Sure. Like we can get some CRISPR stuff and try it out.
That's right. There it is.
I just would love to test this thing.
Go ahead.
The makerspaces around Chicago, Southside Makerspace, I believe, has a biochemistry. They have a little bio lab where people go and do their own little. They play around with like CRISPR kits and stuff like that. So I don't think they're doing any personal mods. Maybe curing lactose intolerance or something. But they do. There are groups that are into that kind of thing. So if you're serious,
If you're serious, we can do it.
We can get it done in the van.
Yeah, that's right.
We can get it done in the van. I got a dentist chair. I can like send up in the back, man. I got a bunch of stocks and interrogation lamps.
Yes.
I can get it all sterile in there. It'll be great.
Gonna feel like I'm in Cyberpunk.
Yeah, man. Dock wagon. Call me the dock wagon.
So I was gonna.
Are you guys familiar with the Francis E. Deck?
No. I'm not.
Well, if you're not familiar, you can look up the combined rantings of Francis E. Deck later.
We'll put it in the show notes for everyone.
He's a slightly insane man who has been has at some point in the past sent many letters to the Supreme Court raving about any number of injustices, not the least of which is the ambulances that drive around abducting people, extracting their brains and replacing their memories in the night with implanted memories that associate with any number of non-existent political feuds, like a common belief in the gangster supercomputer god and the telekinetic brains died from beneath the earth.
Whatever it is.
Kind of out there. It's a great read if you get the chance.
We'll put that in the footnotes.
We'll have to put that in the show notes. We will indeed.
I could be one of those ambulance drivers.
Nick Cage.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that movie? Oh, I can't think of it. Where he was an ambulance driver.
I
Nick
have
Cage.
no clue.
Okay,
I know
I'll-
what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's EMT is what it's called.
No,
It's
it
actually
wasn't.
just
It wasn't
called-
EM. Was it? No.
Maybe Night Shift?
I don't know. I'll put it in the show notes.
As
Okay,
an
we're-
ambulance driver?
He was an ambulance driver.
Yeah, and then he dies.
Yeah. Went to like a drug house. It was like crazy.
Whoa, what?
yeah.
So wrapping up a little bit, finishing last swallows of my drink.
Oh, I've been
I was
done.
gonna say one of the weirdest references or interesting references to is Monsters Inc. And the animated one where the kids are toxic. They're doing the interviews, and he goes, "They picked me up with his mind powers and shook me around." Right? That was like, and I was like, "Oh, look at that! There was that the humans were perceived to have have these kind of telekinetic kind of powers from Monsters Inc." But I was gonna say, what there? Speaking of movies and fiction, what's your favorite kind of movie or fictional reference to telepathy or telekinesis as we wind down? Like, do you have a favorite one, Michael?
You're asking me or
Sure.
Nick?
Or
first?
Nick, either one, whoever wants to jump in. You're the guest, so you get to.
Oh, okay. Well, if I really had to pick, I think it would Counselor Troy from The Next Generation.
Counselor Troy.
Star Trek The Next
Yeah,
Generation. It's
yeah.
high on my list.
High on your list because of the
High on my
telepathy.
list of telepaths.
Yeah, yeah.
No, well, yeah, she has telepathy, but she's basically a smoke detector for the series. She's a living plot device. And this is how I imagine actual telepaths being. Is there, they don't really have much control over the ability, and it's not really useful for anything.
right,
Sure,
right.
you can read people's thoughts, I guess.
Yep.
But its only real practical use would be if you trained it as some kind of empathic capacity, I think.
Right.
Like, or maybe as a spy, maybe like some kind of espionage role.
And you
The
go.
telepaths have always struck me as being kind of useless in fiction. You know,
Yeah.
like
There it is.
Yeah.
Telepaths are useless.
you'll have to forgive me.
Hopefully, you don't run into
You
any
know.
telepaths.
They're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
just
you're right.
insert their thoughts in your
That's
brain.
right. You'll
so
love them after this.
if you start going
That's
on
right.
rants about how much you love them,
Michael comes
Join
up.
the-
I love
I
telepaths
got like
now.
40 voices up here, dude.
All right, Nick, what do you got?
all right, for telepaths, I feel like it's an obvious one for Professor Xavier. Like,
Professor X.
Like,
we gotta have our Marvel love here. We gotta do it.
he created a whole system just so he can make his powers even stronger. Like,
He did. That's right. That's right.
he can
It's a lot
easily
more
become a
than
villain,
Cerebro.
man.
That's right.
He's a step away
And
from
he has,
a
he
villain.
has some telekinetic ability also,
Yeah.
because he can move things and
But for telekinetic,
Right,
I
right,
feel like I have to go.
Tilda.
You know it.
That's a good one. I've never really thought about her being
Yeah.
telekinetic.
Right.
I always thought of it more like mage hand. You
No.
know? Like,
No, straight up, like Matilda is she's got the telekinetic
There it
abilities. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with scanners. 1981.
Scanners. Oh, do you remember?
Where they go and they
I love
can
the
have
CIA,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
spooks
And that's
headed
right. Yeah, you had a
Okay.
bunch of that. Those kind of government programs. Firestarter was around the same time frame, but that was like
when are we
early
going to do our
80s.
conspiracies
And you
episode?
go, that's right. Yeah. And then the other
then I can
one,
pull out the deck references.
and the other one, it's up there is Carrie. I just read the story in Carrie, and there's a number of reasons just from a story perspective, but then also she had this telekinetic ability there that towards the end of the story they tried to tether some genetics, like it was a sex linked kind of gene trait or something like that. But yeah, we'll leave that part
man.
there for maybe a different episode. But yeah, so,
actually,
yeah.
I take it back. Telepaths also might make good sex workers.
Yeah, we're getting somewhere now.
And hey, they can just have it all in your mind, and you'll be like, "Wow, that was great!" And they're
That's
like,
right,
"Yeah, your hours are like 3 hours
There
now."
it is.
Cleanest job ever done. Cleanest job ever done.
Well, I think we are at the end here.
Thank you for
And-
showing
yes,
up on the
that's right.
show.
Michael, can
No,
you
thanks
give
for having me on
your
board.
what's your YouTube handle again so folks can
It's
find
called
you?
Rotoforge. ROTOFORGE. If you want to watch some guy slowly descend into madness trying to solve a hard problem on a really small budget,
There it is.
you can come watch it.
All right.
Well,
Go.
we're gonna make sure we subscribe to it.
We'll subscribe. We'll link to it in our show notes and give you some shout outs and things like that.
I'll reference you and give you a shout out next time I release a video.
Awesome. Sounds good. That's what we're here for.
I've only got like 5K subscribers, but maybe I can point some people your way. You got something interesting going on here, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank
man.
You.
We
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, taking some time out and going down this zany, crazy.
I feel like we hit so many holes this time.
We successfully did not fall in all of them.
We
did
just
not,
shotgun
no.
blasted it.
That's right. No, there's always holes left to explore.
Well,
So-
we'll see you next time when we go down them holes.
I'm Joe. Nick.
I'm Nick.
We have Michael. Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Stay good, people.